Well, we are here on Pro Basketball today. Kevin Walsh and Coach James Young. JY, man, have these NBA playoffs been delivering. And there are a lot of franchises, players, pundits who have some questions laying at their feet. We have clinched our Western Conference round number 2 matchups, but still quite a bit to be decided, JY, out east.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's been a wild week of basketball in regards to teams blowing leads, teams getting blown out, players, their legacies will be questioned today. And everyone, no one is immune to it. Everyone's catching strays today. They're coming from all angles. Kevin and I only get an hour to talk basketball. It is not enough. We will make it enough, but get ready because there may be some fireworks this morning.
Yeah, and as JY and I were trying to figure out where do we begin, I promise everyone we will get to everything. We will get to the nightmare in Denver. We will get to how impressive it was, though, for Minnesota to make it through that series. We will talk about LeBron and the Lakers silencing doubters that crept up again, talking about a 3-0 blown lead. We will talk about, what's going on in Cleveland, because I have some questions. But I think, have to begin with the Orlando Magic and their Game 6 performance against the Detroit Pistons. A performance, we'll get to the Hawks, by the way, that whole thing. I don't know which was worse. And I mean that. And one of these teams lost by $1 billion. The Orlando Magic were outscored comfortably by Cade Cunningham on his own in the second half. Cade Cunningham scored 24 second half points. The Orlando Magic scored 19. 19. What's crazier is they scored 60 in the first half. They had it going on, and then they didn't. And they missed, again, I believe they shot 4 for 37 in the second half. I mean, they went, I think, a half hour, if not more, in between baskets, like real time. Like, if you know how they do the stand-up in OKC before the first basket? Like, if somebody was trying to stand in between shots in Orlando, hopefully they were wearing a pair of insoles. The Orlando Magic had the number 1 seed, coach, dead to rights. I mean, minus 2,500 on the money line at halftime to close this series out. Orlando now, their backs up against the wall. Do you blame Mosley, Paolo? Do you credit Orlando, Bickerstaff? What is your takeaway from that second half in Orlando?
Let's get one thing straight before we get to this. This meltdown is far worse than Atlanta. Atlanta wasn't even in the game. I mean, that game, we'll get to that, was over in the first 4 minutes. Like 62-38, I'm like, I'm prepping, saying, oh, here we go. JB Bickerstaff doesn't adjust. Jalen Duren needs to choke. Cade Cunningham had 45 in game 5, can't do anything in game 6. And I'm sitting there watching dinner with my daughter, Juliana, and saying, oh my goodness. And it was like, as they missed shot after shot, you saw a team get tighter and tighter and tighter. They missed Wagner, obviously. Banchero, I was wondering the entire time, especially the way that Wendell Carter Jr. could shoot, and you were playing De Silva. can someone just tell Paulo to go into the low post against a smaller defender and just see if he could just, I don't know, get to the foul line? Like, kind of ride its way, and you just saw them press and press. And as Detroit started to smell or feel that blood in the water, you could see their defense start to pick up, and you saw the crowd literally, like you thought you were in a funeral. I mean, it may be the funeral for, I guess we'll call them now the Orlando Tragic. But now you look at Jamal Mosley, and you have to look at him first. This is a Jamal Mosley that I thought midway through the 24-25 season, when Wagner and Banchero were out with those ab injuries, I'm saying this guy's NBA Coach of the Year. Then they get to the first round playoffs and get knocked out. Then you're saying to yourself, all right, we'll give them a pass, right? They're going to come back this year. They're going to be a top 4 team in the East, and they underachieve for the majority of the year. Then they give you their performance against Charlotte in the playing game, and you're like, uh-oh, okay, they figured it out. And then you're up 3-1. You lose understandably on the road, and you're up 24 points. And you can't, 24 points, folks. And they scored like 19 more the rest of the way. And it was just a meltdown that sometimes as players, and honestly, people as coaches, you don't know what to do. And Kevin, it looked like the whole organization froze up. They didn't know what to do. There was no plan offensively. It was literally chuck and pray. Throw the ball at the basket and pray to God it goes in. And maybe if you get 1 or 2 in, then you kind of relax. But the blame's going to go to Jamal Mosley. And I hate to say it, Jamal Mosley went from great young coach, needed this year, fired by the end of this season, to maybe this guy's the answer, to now you're going to start looking around and saying, if they lose this, and I don't know how they come back from this down after being up 3-1 and going on the road after the way they performed, if they get blown out, I think there's a chance that you're going to make a significant move. And if you don't trade Wagner or Banchero, then you're looking at the head coach and saying that maybe he is the one on the way out.
It's so interesting because Mosley, look, man, Jamal Mosley entered into this playoffs, and it was like, yeah, we know he's getting fired once this series is over, because Orlando was supposed to be dispatched pretty easily by Detroit in this series. And with the upset looking likelier and likelier, holding a 3-1 series lead, people were like, man, maybe Mosley's really figured this thing out. You know, this still is a young, exciting core, right? Paolo Banchero's just 23. Franz Wagner's just 24. You know, these guys might have something here. Maybe this season will, not reach the full heights that people wanted. Because if you remember, the Orlando Magic were supposed to compete to win the East. Okay, and that's what made them up in the series so fascinating, where preseason they had much higher expectations, actually, than Detroit. But this is, and I just bring this up because expectations change. LeBron and the Lakers went from, guys, I mean, if they win 2 games, it's an accomplishment, to if they lose this series to Houston, it's the biggest disgrace in LeBron's career, because they were up 3-0. For Orlando, if you were to say, hey, they forced the game 7 before the series, yes, that's a great accomplishment. They were up 3-1. They had a game 6 at home with a 22-point halftime lead, and it was gone quite quickly in the fourth quarter. They scored 19 second-half points, and there's a lot of finger-pointing that's about to happen again. And for Paolo specifically, to have the best playoff game of your career, 45-9-7 on 55, that's a real moment. 17 points on 4 of 20 shooting in the next game, 0 of 9 from 3. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. Still a lot to get to here on SportsGrid. Okay, pro basketball today. We are here on SportsGrid. Just the final thing I would say, and this is something that Coach and I may do deeper into the offseason, but I think for Orlando, if your season ends in this round, you just need to do an assessment of the whole thing top to bottom, because there are pieces here that should work, right? I know Paolo had a down year. And again, the game 6 performance was disgraceful, but I mean, the Cheech and Chong shooting line, you can't have that, okay? You can't be out there 4 for 20. It's just unacceptable. The Franz Wagner health is real tough, but there are guys here, right? Suggs, Black, like Bane obviously can shoot it at a high, like there are things that work here, but you have to figure out, do you like this setup, okay? Because there are probably some Franz Wagner trades that could get interesting if you are open to it. There's a Detroit piece of this as well, though, where, and these are sometimes, enjoyable but tense game 7s. It's a disgrace for the Pistons if they lose game 7, make no bones about it. They're not some scrappy underdog just because they were down all those points in game 6. The Pistons won 60 games. Number 1 seed in the conference, were pretty significant favorites here to Orlando. And you would be completely within reason to say this series would be over if not for a Franz Wagner injury. I do not know what's going on with Jalen Duren. I don't know. I don't get it. He averaged 20 and 11 in the regular season. He's not grabbed 10 rebounds yet in this series. He's not scored more than 12 points. He's averaging under 10 a game in this series. It's jarring for a guy who's going to make all NBA teams. Really is. We'll see what the Pistons can do. But what's interesting is when you grab a snapshot of the Eastern Conference playoffs, and, yes, it's partly because they were the first team to advance, but the vibes around the Knicks, when is the last time they were this high? I guess after the first 2 wins in Boston a year ago, I guess that would be so. But man, oh man, the New York Knicks, there's so many reasons why. So I want to hear you, Coach, because we're going to get to Atlanta. Some of the Atlanta stuff I think actually might be a little cut and dry. We'll do it. But the Knicks win 140-89. They close this series in 6 after a 2-1 series deficit. Where are you at on New York right now?
Which New York team's going to show up? I mean, let's be honest. I don't, Kevin. I wonder if Mike Brown was playing the rope-a-dope like literally the first 3 games of this series. Because you know where I'm going with this, Kevin. I have been screaming when Mike Brown got hired. All I thought about is how Steve Kerr used Draymond in that pinch post, in that split screen or flex action, right? Throw the ball to the elbow, run cutters off of them. Then Mike Brown brings it to Domantas Sabonis, who, let's be honest, has not been the same since Mike Brown left, right? This guy was almost a walking triple-double at some point, Domantas Sabonis, playing all NBA levels. So when he got to the Knicks, I said, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. And they waited. And then they waited. And they waited. And then all of a sudden, after game 3, Mike Brown's like, dang, maybe I should put Cat at the high post and run flex or split screen action. And it completely opened up their offense. OG was better. Cat was phenomenal. Hart played great defense. You got stuff off the bench. And I'm going to say something that is not going to be popular with Knicks fans. They're best when the ball goes through Cat at the high post and not Brunson dribbling the ball. It's simple as that. If you think about basketball 101, Atlanta was able to load up, particularly late in game 2, because it was like run hard through, one-on-one, Brunson save us. When the ball is at Cat's ability, and Cat is a very underrated player. You can talk about how he plays or his mannerisms, some of that. The guy at 7 feet tall can pass the rock. So if you run cutters off of him, the Knicks become more dangerous. Yes. Did Atlanta kind of fold up? Yes. But you got to give New York credit in regards to how they
Yeah.
adjusted. Now, they got real quick. Oh, if they're going to win next series, particularly it's Boston, Mikal Bridges has got to be way better than what he is. But you're hoping that his performance in Game 6 may unlock him because him and OG are going to be the pivotal ones, especially defensively, if they have to go against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
JY, man, oh man. The Knicks have done something that feels impossible to me. Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson have played over 150 basketball games together. They've been together. This is what, their third season now together. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's their second season actually, which was interesting. Feels longer. Did they figure out how to play together in the third game of this series? Did someone whisper to Mike Brown, hey, this works? Did the Brunson family come together and say, you know what, maybe we should adjust? Because the way the Knicks are operating, it feels like a new basketball team, and it's perfect. I mean, it is exactly what the Knicks should be running. Like the pure X's and O's of it, JY, obviously I'll let you handle. But the simple stuff that, I think anyone's eyes can tell you. Instead of Brunson have to dribbling for 15 seconds into tough shots, they give it to a 7-foot super skilled big who gets the ball to elite cutters in great areas and to have easy looks. There's a reason why OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges shot the ball 21 of 26 in that game. And yes, they obviously were great in their own right, but a lot of easy looks. The Brunson 39 piece that we saw at the Garden in Game 5, he wasn't pounding the air out of the basketball. Cut, back screen, and it keeps Towns more engaged. I mean, it is this flip where all of a sudden, JY, it's like they understand their roster. And it completely changes this team's ceiling, in my opinion. We'll talk more about that, the Atlanta side as well. All right, pro basketball today. Did we completely continue the show during the break so I could get more insight on the Knicks just flipping around their entire offense? Yes. Yes, we did. The Knicks ceiling is completely raised with the way that they are operating. And it is, I mean, look, man, it makes sense. You know, the idea is not just, oh, Bridges and Anunoby are not Lou Dort, okay? The reason those guys were, so tempting to New York is they could also score 20 plus. You now are fully using, I don't know if you're fully using Cat because he's finishing games with less than, he's 11 shot attempts in the last 2 games combined, but you are unlocking Cat a little bit. You're freeing up your wings. Brunson's legs aren't gone. Guys are defending their tails off. It's really impressive. I do, coach, because we have so much to get to. Here's my take on Atlanta. You tell me if it's unfair. You lose a basketball game at home with your season on the line by 51 points. You trail by 61 in that basketball game. You get fired. The Atlanta Hawks have a nice young core. They are projected to add a high-level draft pick due to the New Orleans, Milwaukee of it all. Quinn Snyder's been around a long time. And Quinn Snyder, by the way, might have been watching some Rudy Gobert against Denver highlights real confused. Like, I used to bench that guy in the playoffs. Why is he out there dominating right now? I'm sorry. I'm not saying everything is Quinn Snyder's fault, but it's enough that I would fire him if I'm at Atlanta as I head into one of the most important off seasons that this franchise has had in some time.
And it's amazing, Kevin, when you think about Atlanta, they go from a team that we had high expectations for this season. They trade Trey, start over, 19-3 down the stretch, raise the ceiling. And folks, I want to make sure people understand this. Atlanta picked the Knicks. That's the matchup they wanted. So when you get that, and it's almost like, Kevin, they got their soul taken from them in game 4. Because game 5 was pretty non-competitive as well. But for you to go home and forget the 61 points in the second half, 50, you were down 25 after the first quarter. OG Anunoby had more points than you did. You had 10 turnovers. That is lack of effort. That is lack of focus. That is lack of coaching. And when that happens, all the goodwill that came out of Atlanta down the stretch, Kevin, literally got flushed down the toilet. But Atlanta's got an interesting offseason. You're absolutely right with that pick that they have through to New Orleans and Milwaukee. A couple of things they need to do. They need to make sure they re-sign Kuminga, who was a valuable resource off the bench. You got to retain TJ McCollum, but he can't be the guy. I think he became the guy. The Knicks locked him up, and then they couldn't do anything else. Okay? You got to get more adults in the room, veteran guys that are tough guys that can look at a team and say, this is unacceptable. And then you got to look at Zachary Ricochet and say, either we got to find a way to develop this kid or we got to get rid of him before so we can get something else. Because that kid, as a number 1 draft pick or number 2 draft pick, what he did and what he is not is an indictment on the franchise and the coaching staff. They got to find a way to unlock this kid. It's too much talent, K-Dub. They got to find a way to unlock this kid. And if they can't, they got to move him before his value drops any lower.
Yeah, I mean, Zachary Ricochet was in the same draft class as Bronny James, and one organization is much happier with their pick, and the other is the Atlanta Hawks. I got to say that, but for Atlanta, now listen, as much as I think that Quinn Snyder will be, let go over this, if it wasn't for CJ McCollum, this might have been a sweep. To some degree, the Knicks should be thankful for CJ McCollum, because if it was, I don't know if they would have, flipped their order of operations around. But man, Jalen Johnson didn't, I feel like, live up to his regular season billing. Nickeil Alexander-Walker won most improved, averaged 20.8 points per game. His series high was 17. That was in game 1. He shot 38% from the field. He couldn't make a basket inside the arc. Like, Dyson Daniels had some nice moments, and then he lost his mind with Mitch Robb. But this is a group who they may need to reach their ceiling. They may just need to find themselves inside the top 3 of this lottery in order to bring in the best player on the team. I'm not sure they have a best player on the team yet. All right. We will get to Cleveland and Toronto, but some Western Conference action we have to discuss. Out west, the LA Lakers have finished off the Houston Rockets, and they did so in dominant fashion. So just to put it into perspective, the Magic in their 19-point second half scored one more point than the Rockets did in their Game 6 effort, 98-78. And it was pretty quickly the Lakers, they trailed 16-11. They closed the quarter on a 12-2 run, but it expanded further than that. It was a 21-2 run that the Lakers went on between the first and second quarter. LeBron was the best player on the court by a country mile with 28, 7, and 8. He was the best player in this series by a country mile. And we got to a really interesting spot in this series. The Lakers kind of entered with low expectations. Even their biggest fans, even the biggest LeBron fans, really didn't think them winning this series was on the board. Yes, the Kevin Durant injury changes some things, but I think the Rockets still would have been comfortable favorites, considering the Rockets were favorites in every single game the Lakers won in this series. So it gives you an idea just how impressive this was. Though there was a moment where people were wondering, would LeBron and the Lakers become the first team to ever blow a 3-0 series lead? And the Sharks were circling, because that's what happens when you're the greatest player of all time. In year 23, age 41, you're held to a higher standard than the best player in the world, quote unquote. So, JY, look, I think LeBron James put another one of one resume line up there. And I think JJ Redick got a much needed first series win as a young head coach in this league. I think Marcus Smart has maybe extended his NBA career like a half decade because Smart, I mean, it was getting a little for a while, right? Boston let him go. Kennard found himself quite favorably here. Your boy, De'Aaron Ayton, stepped up over the final games of this series as well. The story is LeBron. Everybody in that locker room, though, for LA should feel great about themselves because this, just so people understand, this is a bigger series upset than Minnesota knocking off Denver. Just so this was a real accomplishment, JY, by this Laker team.
And I'll be honest with you, I thought going into the series, I want people to really understand this. If you said, and I want people to just think about this, no Luka, you don't think you're getting Austin Reeves versus a Houston team that on paper is probably the better team. You think Houston. And there's a lot of credit that should go to that Lakers coaching staff. And I was, when I had Iron Eagle on last week, we were talking about, the importance of having Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks on staff, having experienced coaches that have been in the playoffs. They were dialed in defensively, and when you get to the playoffs, Kev, you got to have nondescript guys step up, right? You got to get other guys to do things, especially when you're dealing with injuries. So, and it was interesting when I was talking to Ian on the coaches with JY, he made a good point about Stan Van Gundy, and I want people to understand the greatness of LeBron. And this is someone that thinks Jordan's the greatest of all time. And for the first time in my life, I'm starting to be like, I don't know, I may be wrong. Here is why. LeBron James is the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA. And scoring is not his best attribute. It's his passing. And I think that is something that when you talk about Kobe or Jordan or all these other guys, scoring, that's what they do. Like LeBron is passing. And LeBron's ability to lift up his teammates to make them play levels that you don't know is possible. Folks, he averaged 8.3 assists per game. Like, are you kidding me with this? So we have to give LeBron his flowers. Mm-hmm. Now Houston. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Is there, if you want me to talk about Jamal Mosley in the first half hour of the show, is there a coach that was so highly regarded, like unbelievable coach, like Ime Udoka, who has fallen down that cliff and fallen down quickly? I mean, you're down 3-0. I know you got it to game 6, good for you. But then you're non-competitive in a game 6 in your building, lose by 20 points. How you doing? You're down, big at the end of halftime. Like you're not even there. So you have to look at Houston and their lack of leadership. You have to look at the fact that we're going to have Kevin Durant questions, not about his injury, but ready? Is Kevin Durant going to ask out? Because there's already rumblings that it may be coming again, right? And then you got to look at the young kids. Şengün getting outplayed at times by De'Aaron Ayton. And then there's the kid, Reed Shepherd. Oh my goodness, what in the Fred VanVleet happened? In the 4 games they lost, Kevin, 16 of 64 from the floor, 10 of 40 from 3. Reed Shepherd's got to be better, but it'll be interesting to see if Houston does make big moves or if they say, all right, we get VanVleet back, we get Steven Adams back next year, adults in the room, tough guys, leaders, competitors, and they try and run it back. Very interesting offseason that we have right now coming up for Houston.
Yeah, so the Rockets piece of this is really, really interesting because they could have a really loud offseason. And it's funny, you say adults in the room. I wonder if they actually need no more adults for a season. Look, I'm going to defend Reed Sheppard. I know that won't surprise people, but it's not easy when you have a head coach who has spent your entire 2 seasons in the NBA showing how little he believes in you. Reed Sheppard was selected 3rd overall, and in his rookie season, started 3 basketball games. He played 12 and a half minutes a night. He spent 20, 30 games in the G League, averaging 30 a game for no reason. Because, and by the way, everyone keeps talking about Fred VanVleet. Last year, the Rockets, we were like, man, they need another ball handler. And Reed Sheppard was just burning away on the bench because Ime wouldn't play him. Fred VanVleet tore his ACL, not during the season, not during the series, in the summer. And still, Ime wouldn't fully trust Reed to get him to the level that they needed. Because I got to tell you, when Reed Sheppard played well, the Rockets were really tough in this series. But he didn't play very well, and I'm not saying he did. But people are like, oh, where's the point guard? I don't know. How about the guy you drafted 3rd overall? And I think it's clear. I don't think Ime likes Reed. I don't think he likes Alperen Şengün. And I don't think Kevin Durant likes these guys either. And that one I'm not really speculating on. That's what happens when you're online to the degree that Kevin Durant is and the burner gets leaked. That's what happens. And the idea of like, oh, can KD leave? Again, yeah. Because guess what? At this point, who cares? Kevin Durant has played for OKC and Golden State and Brooklyn and Phoenix and now Houston. He's not going to finish his career a Rocket. We know that, JY. So, of course, he could leave this offseason. And he probably should.
And I'm gonna say this really quick about KD, all right? Because people talk about KD, LeBron. Kevin, answer me a question. How many times has LeBron been traded in his career?
None.
I rest my case. He's going to run somewhere else next year. That's just what he does.
The thing is, I also think the Rockets should be like, yeah, you know what? We did this for a season. We're good. The other option for the Rockets is to try and trade for Giannis. Those are the 2 choices on the board for Houston. Denver. All right, now let's talk, okay? Let's talk a little bit here because there are there are some people who seem to be a bit confused what it means to be the best player in the world. What that means is you are held to the highest standard in the league. And when you are considered the best player in the world in the prime of your career, and it's a career that people believe is one of the 10 greatest in the history of the sport, you cannot go out in round number one the way Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets did. And the rewriting of history that is going on is beyond belief. I'm hearing about how the Denver Nuggets are a 35-win team without Jokic. They went 11-6 without Jokic. The Thunder went 8-6 without SGA. Oh, the Thunder, their roster's awful. Or excuse me, the Nuggets roster's awful. That roster was applauded as it was being built this offseason. Everybody thought the Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. swap was a triumph for Denver. It was a huge mistake, but we were led to believe that they've really figured something out here. But the thing is, none of that matters, okay? It doesn't matter that the Nuggets entered this series as minus 300 favorites. None of it matters because they were down 3-1. Jokic was playing some terrible basketball, and then every guard on Minnesota was injured. From Ayo Dosunmu, who dropped 40 in this series, Dante DiVincenzo, who's been a reliable starter for a couple of seasons now in Minnesota, to the best player on the Wolves in Anthony Edwards. Not that he'll ever hear this, but hey, Bill Simmons, did Aaron Gordon getting injured mean more than all of the Wolves? No, you can't do that, man. No, Aaron Gordon and his injury, okay, does not wash away a completely unacceptable result for the Nuggets. And what you saw out of Nikola Jokic is when he is not playing at a supernova offensive level, it's really damaging to have him out there because it is open season at the rim. I mean, there isn't, and he's not, jump. You're 7, jump. Get off your feet and jump. Try and block something instead of watching Jaden McDaniels call you soft and then score his career high on you to close you out in 6. Nikola Jokic is a 3-time MVP who has been to 2 conference finals. That is wildly unacceptable from the Joker. And if you want to blame all of that on the guys around him, then stop praising Jokic for not caring and just loving his horses. Because if it's everybody's around him's fault, then maybe he should care more, okay? And apply some pressure to the front office outside of giving a thumbs up to the Russell Westbrook signing from a season ago. It is unacceptable for Denver, for Murray, for Adelman, but it is mostly unacceptable for the guy who last year played SGA in a series, was outplayed in the series, lost the series. Shea won MVP, Finals MVP this year, will win MVP, is favored to win Finals MVP, and nobody cared and still called Jokic the best in the world. If that's you, then this can't happen. And it did, Coach.
There's so much to unpack on what happened with Denver and particularly Nikola Jokic. Before we do that, I must give credit to Rudy Gobert. Rudy made life hell for him. He made Nikola Jokic, who averaged 4.5 3-point attempts for the season, shoot 6 per game during the playoffs. You have a Nikola Jokic who shot, ready folks, 19.4% from 3. 19.4% from 3. And Kevin, this is on 6 attempts a game. This wasn't like he shot, 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 every game. I mean, he shot 7, 7, 10, 3, 4, 5. So he got attempts up. When you are Nikola Jokic, and I want to, and this is where I get old school. When I think about centers, I think about two-way guys that protected the rim. Shaq, Robinson, Olajuwon, Ewing, right? Just to give 4 of what we could say the last, Kevin, 30 years, some of the best centers in the history of the game. I didn't even get to Kareem. They all played both sides of the floor. And you don't get that out of Nikola Jokic. Now listen, is Aaron Gordon a big injury that they missed? Yes. I also think Peyton Watson is another big injury, which they have to make sure they resign him. But I think Rich Paul is representing him. How you doing? My man's about to get paid based on the way they play without him. But if you are Denver, we keep talking about Giannis, all these guys. I'm telling you right now, watch out for the Joker. He was very cryptic post-game. And I'm going to say this. You can talk about Giannis all you want. One final, no other conference finals. Same thing with Jokic. The more disappointing team over that time frame is Denver, because Jokic has been mostly healthy. Giannis has missed a ton of time. If you're going to go after Giannis for what he's doing or not doing and winning on Milwaukee, you need to have the same conversation with the same anger with Nikola Jokic, because he does not uplift his team. And that, Kevin, is a problem.
I will say this, though, because Giannis fans have been talking a little crazy the last couple of days. Giannis has won 1 playoff game in the last 4 seasons. Worry about your own stuff a little bit for me, Giannis fans. Just a little bit, all right? Be right back here on SportsGrid. All right, Coach. I think we've covered almost all of our bases here on pro basketball today. Kevin Walsh, Coach James Young, happy to have you with us. The one thing we have not mentioned really yet, Toronto and Cleveland, we are going to get a Game 7 back in Cleveland. And, the other day I defended Harden very lightly after the Game 6 loss by saying he was a plus 11 in 44 minutes. You really can't pin this loss on him. And a lot of people are, look at the Harden fans. They're coping. I'm not a Harden fan at all. What I am, though, is somebody who is watching 36-year-old James Harden being held to a higher standard than Donovan Mitchell or Evan Mobley at times in this series. And I don't think that's right. Donovan Mitchell, throughout his career, has been a postseason scoring riser. We can debate the results, but he scores. Scored 30 in the first 2 games of this series. He's averaging under 24 a game in this series. This guy averaged 28 a night in the regular season. Evan Mobley has had 2 really nice games consecutively here, but we know Mobley's up and down. I don't know what is going on with Jared Allen. I don't know if he's still injured. I don't know what's going on with Jared Allen. But he doesn't look, himself fully, it feels, JY, at times. I think Scotty Barnes has been the best player in this series. I think Scotty Barnes is cementing himself as probably a top 15 or so guy in this league. Certainly top 20. Let's say top 20. Flirting with top 15. Not top 10 just yet. But top 20 guy in this league. And your boy, former Knick, RJ Barrett, with, a shot of a lifetime as he forced that Game 7 here in this series.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible shot, an incredible moment. And you got worried, Kevin, because they had that lead predominantly the entire fourth quarter. Evan Mobley makes that tough move in the lane to get it to overtime. And you were waiting for just to pin the pop, but you saw toughness. And you're right about Scotty Barnes. Listen, when Scotty Barnes is healthy, he is one of the top 20 players in the world. You have to, because his ability, ready for Nikola Jokic, to play both sides of the ball. So I think that is really important. But they're getting contributions. Jacoby Waltz has been good. I like, even though he doesn't score, I think the toughness of what Jamal Shed has brought to this team, with the injury to Emmanuel quickly. Murray Bowles has been very good at times in this series. So it sets up a Game 7. And we've talked a little bit about Giannis. We talked about the legacy of the Joker. We talked a little bit about Banchero. Folks, you got to look at Cleveland right now, and there are legacies on the line. Like, there are legacies on the line that we must talk about. We must talk about, can James Harden exercise his Game 7 demons, which he's going to need to if they're going to win. We got to talk about Donovan Mitchell, a great stat compiler, but can he be a great winner? Can Evan Mobley put it all together and be the player that we think he is, which is a 20-10 guy? Does Jared Allen show up and be that guy? It's so many questions for a team that it's almost like if they lose, that could be the next time you look at me like, okay, well, where are they going? They just got Harden. Are they going to finally break up Mobley and Allen, which I've been saying to do for 2 years, so I just don't think it works together? They can shut a lot of people up by winning Game 7, but if they lose Game 7, Kevin, there's going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of finger pointing. And honestly, Kevin, it could go a whole lot of different ways depending on who plays well in Game 7.
Yeah, I gotta say though, it has been a fun series. Home court advantage has been everything so far within this series, but it is also it is really all of this has put the Eastern Conference in a really fun, I believe at least, kind of position where, look, whoever came out of the East was kind of always going to likely be a pretty significant underdog, especially when you consider OKC is minus 140 to win a championship in, it's only round 2. But you have a lot of teams still almost discovering kind of, who they can count on, who they can't, the up and down nature of it. I mean, we got 3 game 7s in the East. It's been an absolute treat. It's been a treat to be here with all of you over this last hour. Of course, excellent job. That is Coach James Young. I'm Kevin Walsh. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on Pro Basketball Today.